Hello and welcome to day 9 of our Viking Grand European River Cruise. Today we start in Passau. Because of high water, we were bused from Bamberg to Passau, and we will be bused back to Regensburg today. But before we go into that, there is one optional tour from Passau, and that takes you to Munich, the capital of Bavaria. It's an 8-hour and 30-minute trip, 2 hours on the bus, and you get to see the Olympic Park, which was built for the infamous 1972 Olympics, the Marienplatz, which is the main square with its gorgeous Glockenspiel, and then finally the Viktualenmarkt, the city's outdoor market very near to Marienplatz. It wasn't until after lunch that we boarded the buses for the hour-plus drive to Regensburg, and the scenery was very, very beautiful. To the north of us was the Bavarian National Forest, and then we followed the Danube all the way to Regensburg. Now, there were two short tours in Regensburg, just the Regensburg walking tour and a shore excursion that goes also into the Jewish quarter and gives you some Jewish history. The Regensburg tour is fairly short. You do get to see some Roman ruins, the 12th century old stone bridge, the oldest bratwurst place, and learn some about Jewish history, and I'll cover all this. Downtown Regensburg is very compact, and it wasn't destroyed during World War II. The Altstadt, the old city in Regensburg, is fairly small and compact, and it's easy to walk around. But I can give you an overview here of the drone flying down the Danube, looking at the Sternebrücke, which is the stone bridge from the 12th century. It was for 800 years the only bridge connecting old Regensburg with the new city. As we cross over the bridge and look down, you'll see that the Danube is flowing very rapidly. It may be from the high water. So if you're enjoying my videos, I sure appreciate it if you just hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified of new videos. At the end of the bridge is the gateway to the Altstadt, and it's thought to have been at one time an ancient gate built by the Romans. Next to it on the left is a salt storage building. Salt was very, very valuable and important in Europe. The current building is from the 17th century, but archaeological evidence suggests a similar structure existed in the 12th century. Today it's a visitor center. Then located right next to it is the historic sausage kitchen of Regensburg, the Wurstküche to Regensburg. It is considered to be the oldest continuously operating restaurant in the world, dating back to around 1135, when it served the construction office for the stone bridge and then moved to a restaurant to service the bridge workers. It's simple and it's focused on sausage. You can order portions of 6, 8, or 10 sausage served with sauerkraut and mustard, and supposedly they serve around 6,000 sausages a day. From here, it's a very short walk up the narrow streets to the St. Peter's Cathedral. St. Peter's Cathedral in Regensburg is a crown jewel of a Gothic architecture. It is the only Gothic cathedral in Bavaria. Construction began in the 1270s after a fire destroyed the previous Romanesque cathedral on the site, and it is part of UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's also the seat of the Catholic Diocese of Regensburg. Inside, there are vibrant stained glass windows from the 13th and 14th century and are considered the most extensive collection in the German-speaking world. The All Saints Chapel was built in the 12th century and evokes the architectural style of Ravenna, Italy. Now, there are all kinds of stories about the statue standing on the stone bridge gazing at the cathedral. Supposedly, the guy that was building the stone bridge is represented in this statue, and he was competing against the cathedral architect to see who would finish first. I really don't know who won the competition. Next to the cathedral is a wonderful little restaurant, and when we were there on an earlier trip, there was a band playing in the courtyard. Next, it is a very short walk over to the Porta Praetoria, which was constructed by Marcus Aurelius. Along with the Porta Nigra in Trier, this gate is the only partly preserved Roman gate north of the Alps. Now we head down the old narrow streets of the city and walk past the Goliath House. The Goliath House was built in 1260 and is one of the oldest city castles within Regensburg. The massive mural depicting David slaying Goliath was painted in 1573. Next up, the statue looks like it's fairly old, Don Juan, but it's a copy of a statue from Sicily that was erected in 1978. Right next to the old city hall is the Princess Café, which is the oldest coffee house in Regensburg, founded in 1686. Next, we stop by the Alte Rathaus, or the Old Town Hall, and it has a very rich history. The construction began in the 13th century, making it one of the oldest town halls in Germany. The architectural style blends both Gothic and Baroque elements, and you can go up in the clock tower to get a panoramic view of the city. Next, we start to explore some of the Jewish heritage in Regensburg, and we head over to Neupfarrplatz to look at the artwork by an Israeli sculptor, Danny Caravan, which depicts the floor plan of the former synagogue, a reminder of the Jewish community's history in the region. As you walk around the city, you see many examples of the remnants of the Jewish history of the city, and most importantly, you go by the house of Oskar Schindler of Schindler's List fame. The Jewish community in Regensburg was established around 1210, but in 1519 the Jewish community was expelled from the city. You still see a few original tombstones scattered throughout the city. You will also see some brass cobblestones called stumbling stones throughout the city that represent families or individuals that were taken away by the Nazis. Now it's time to head back to the bus. But before we do, we go up this very narrow alley for some fun, and there's a store there that modernizes some of the composers, the great composers of Europe. We actually bought a pillow of Elton John Mozart. Well, it's back across the old stone bridge where we do get a look at some of the mills that were set into the smaller channels next to the Danube, but we crossed the bridge for what turned out to be a fairly long walk back to the bus. Along the way, at least, there were plenty of places to stop and have a bite or a beer before we got onto the bus, and it was back through one of the old city gates to the bus stop where we were able to meet our bus and start on the long ride back to Passau. If you have the good fortune to be here in December, there's a wonderful Christmas market here in Regensburg, as with other German cities. So we board the bus a little after 5 and start our trip back to Passau. Now you miss the beautiful sights along the Danube, even this poster that says "Build bridges, not walls." Looking back at the city on the Danube, it's absolutely gorgeous, but there's one important monument that we missed, and that's called Valhalla. Now, Valhalla is a neoclassical monument modeled after the Parthenon, and it was built by the Mad King Ludwig I. It was built during a time of German nationalism, and you find a collection of 132 busts and 65 plaques honoring a wide range of figures from German-speaking regions. It took us about an hour and a half with a rest stop to get to Passau on the bus, but along the way we got a glimpse at the Bavarian National Forest, the Danube, and this apartment building, which looks like a person lying down. Finally, we arrive in Passau and get to see the cathedral and finally meet our new ship, the Viking Mimir. It was a pretty long day, and we arrived back at the ship for dinner and then Bavarian folklore for evening's entertainment, which I will share with you. This was a father and son duo, and the son was absolutely fantastic doing a traditional Schuhplatte. playing the spoons, and sawing wood. Then it was time for group participation. And then the world-famous chicken dance. Finally, we rolled out the barrel for a trip around the lounge.
Now's the time to roll the barrel for the game rolling.
Well, thanks very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this little trip to Regensburg, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to our channel.